The Twilight Wars continued for centuries, but no race was powerful enough to seize the throne and risk suffering a similar fate as the Emperor. Slowly, the strength of great civilizations failed, as their economies crumbled, and as knowledge and technology was lost in the destruction and strain of long war. And so, the Age of Twilight ended in a slow whisper. The time that followed, now known as the Dark Years, was a period of economic, cultural, and intellectual collapse. The great races retreated into their own small enclaves, abandoning what they could no longer hold by force. After several millennia, the Dark Years have ended, and a calm but uncertain period of rebuilding began. The day will soon come when a new empire will rise. For the sake of all, may the new emperor have not only the power to seize the throne, but the strength to conquer the peace. If not, I fear that a sea of desolation will drown us all. These are the opening words for the immersive space opera Twilight Imperium, where you and 5 other players are the actors for the most involved game on Earth. Reprising the roles of any of the 24 alien races, you vie with your rivals through military, politics, technology, exploration, colonization, and trade to see who will ultimately be crowned Emperor. Twilight Imperium is a strategy board game of galactic conquest in which players take control of one of several factions striving for control of the galaxy through military might, political maneuvering, or economic bargaining. First released in 1997, the game is currently in its 4th edition, with 24 playable factions in the most recent expansion, each offering a unique gameplay experience, from the wormhole-hopping Ghosts of Krios to the Emirites of Hakan, Masters of Trade and Economics. Each faction offers many paths to victory, but only one may sit upon the throne of Mechatol Rex as the new Masters of the Galaxy. Start of the game. At the start of the game, we pick one of these 24 unique factions, each with their own specialty, and here I will recommend 6 that are good for new players. First, we have the Barony of Letnev, and it's a faction themed around monarchy and war, whose members look a bit like dark elves. They excel at space combat, and can, with a bit of effort, produce the strongest fighting force in the game. They are the instigators to the eventual fall of the Lazek Empire. The Federation of Sol is a far-flung future where we are united around a global federation with a hegemon of cultures. They technically excel in ground combat, but are really just the best all-arounders. They are also one of the primary reasons the Lazek Empire fell. Next, we have the Universities of Jolnar, and they are a faction themed around it. You guessed it, universities. Their members look a bit like fish. While they are geniuses, they are physically weak, so they excel in technology, but are weak in combat. The Excha Kingdom are famous diplomats and are the infamous Peace Turtles. They excel at defense and politics, and they tried to hold the failing Lazek Empire together. The Emirates of Hakan are the infamous Space Cats. They are themed around Middle Eastern traders and are commiserate merchants who excel at trade. From commodities to planets, they have what you need at a price. The Nazroka Alliance is an expansion faction focused on exploration. I thought I would do all base game factions, but the Nazroka are just so cool, I had to include them. This faction is a unification of 2 unlucky peoples, the Naz, technological savants, and the Roka, which are homeless mercenaries who are distant relatives to Hakan. Once factions are selected, we can then build a board, either through the standard one in the rulebook, randomly placing tiles, or the much hyped multi draft, where you draft slices. But I would definitely recommend just using the map in the book for your first game. Gameplay. The goal of this game is to garner the favor of the custodians on Mechatol Rex and be granted the title of the Emperor. To earn their favor, you must accomplish the public and secret missions the custodians supply each round, but be warned, it won't always be easy. Now, for how to play the game, instead of going into a lot of detail, I'll give you a brief overview of the phases of gameplay. Strategy phase. During this phase, each player chooses a strategy card. These cards provide players with powerful abilities to use during the action phase. Each card also has a number that determines turn order for the game round. Action phase. During this phase, the majority of the game's actions occur. This includes moving units, producing units, resolving combat, and using strategy cards. Status phase. During this phase, players perform cleaning up steps in preparation for the next game round, and then agenda phase. During this phase, players vote on political agendas which can have lasting ramifications in the game. The agenda phase is added to the game after a player gains control of Mechatol Rex. Since the action phase is the most important, I'll go over it just briefly. The action phase is heavily turn-based. Every player takes one action, unless you research a special tech, and you go in order, taking turns until everyone passes. To do an action, you use command token, you place it on the map, and then you can move units there, produce units there, do actions there. Shoot space cannons, and then combat occurs if 2 units players are in the same area, and you can also produce where you have space docks and do all sorts of other fun stuff. I'm not really going to go into more detail than that, but it is the meat and potatoes, and it is where most of the action will happen, hence the name Action Phase. One important thing to remember when you play Twilight Imperium is that while it might look similar to Space Risk, it is not. Even if you are playing a militaristic faction, you cannot neglect the other spheres, as the winner is not the one who has the most territory, but the one who has 10 victory points at the end of the game. I have seen multiple people win the game with only a single planet left. Also, I recommend any first-time players check out a very helpful podcast called Space Cats Peace Turtles and listen to the episode on their faction that they're going to play. I certainly did when I played my first game, and it made a world of difference, made the game a lot more fun for me, and I was way more competitive. I will link their podcast down below in the description, and then you can just search through their, I think, mid-200s now episodes. Stories! In my last game, I was the Yssaril tribes and had been poking around in other people's territory with a lot of whoops, don't mind me, nothing to see here, I'll leave next turn. The Nalu player had had enough and came at me with a death fleet of dreadnoughts and carriers and the warfare strategy. A skilled retreat and a sabotage, then a conventional retreat with some losses. Then warfare allowed him more attacks, and I retreated again, suffering damage on my flagship, which he tried to direct hit, but I sabotaged it. I had spent something like 5 action cards in the fight and retreated halfway across the galaxy, but I later found out that I had denied him his secret objective of killing a flagship, and at the end of the game, he and I ended with the same score, although he won due to initiative order. End of the matter. Ultimately, Twilight Imperium is such a good game because between all the advanced aliens, all the plastic pieces, and all the contrived cards, there's a deep game that simulates life. All the triumphs and defeats, alliances and betrayals, twists and turns stay with you for long after the game is over. It truly is, as a prominent player said, Twilight Imperium is life. Normally, this is the part where I say a joke score in the vein of a certain African warlord, like 10 trade goods out of the cost of a war son. But just this once, I will be as earnest as possible. This is the best board game I have ever played, and I'm not sure there can ever be one that is better. 10 out of 10. Please give this game a try. If my impassioned plea or anything I have said has resonated with you, then invite you to join the Twilight Imperium Discord, linked below, and play. Join one of the weekly new player games played on Tabletop Simulator with helpful people to lead you, and other new players through a game. In addition, playing on Tabletop Simulator is a great way to try the game before paying the $150 price tag, and the mod is tacitly endorsed by Fantasy Flight and is quite advanced. Though I should say, I like it so much I bought the game. If anyone is out there looking for people to play with, feel free to hit me up or leave a comment. I'm usually up for a game, especially over the weekends. Anyway, folks, I know this is a board game, not a video game, so I thank you for your patience. After all, it's a virtue. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share this video with the unenlightened. Have a nice day, y'all. Woo!